Hi. Last video we have discussed about XML reduction. So XML is an extensible markup language which is having user-defined elements or user-defined tags. So in order to write XML tags, user-defined tags, so we need to follow some rules. Those rules are calling XML syntax rules. XML must have a root element and also XML having prolag. That is type prolag look like external mark XML version equal to 1.0. So XML version is 1.0 up to now. Encoding characters UTF-8 that is supporting default characters set by the XML, and also all XML elements must have a closing tag, and XML tags are case sensitive. XML elements must be properly nested, and XML attributes values must be quoted. So they are the syntax rules while writing the XML document we should follow. Right? So first thing is it should consist of an element and also it should consist of XML prolag, and every element must be have closing element, closing tag, and the XML elements are case sensitive and that must be properly nested and also must be quoted. So see here XML writing attributes values must be quoted means, so here simply the note is a element which is having as attribute. So the attribute value while writing the attribute value here, so that must be quoted means here we did not write within the quotes. So here we have written within quotes. This is correct syntax while writing the attributes. So the while attribute values while writing that, it is a correct syntax. So that we should write while attribute values must be quoted. Next, entity references. So XML while writing entities like suppose employee having salary less than 1,000. So for that, just I have written a uh, like salary less than 1,000. So in that cases, we need to write instead of writing less than, we should write entity reference. Reference why for the less than. Why? Because that is ambiguity will be incurred by the parsing. Why? Because we are using the left elements will be within angular brackets. So one of the angular brackets less than will look like, so that we should write instead of writing some declaring like less than, greater than, apostrophe and double quotes within the text message, we should write entity references. So that entity references here is instead of writing less than, we should write ampersand LT semicolon. So that there are 5 predefined entity references are there in XML. Those are less than, okay, greater than, ampersand, apostrophe, question mark, quotation mark. So instead of writing less than, we should write ampersand LT semicolon, and greater, instead of writing greater than, you should write ampersand GT semicolon, and instead of writing and symbol, you should write ampersand AMP semicolon, and apostrophe instead of that. And present APOS semicolon. Instead of writing quote, you should write present QOT semicolon. These are the entity references while writing corresponding values. Okay, and while writing the comments in the XML, you should write comments like HTML. So left angular bracket, exclamation mark, 2 dashes, okay, and comment, and end of the comment, 2 dashes, right angular bracket. We should write this syntax while writing the comments. So this type of comments will not allowed in XML. Between the comments, 2 dashes will not be allowed. The 2 dashes must be, and as well as starting of the after the exclamatory mark. So in that way we can write the comments in XML. Okay, and also like XML stores new lines as like line feed. So Windows applications to store a new line as carries written on line feed. So Unix and Mac OS uses line feed, and old Mac systems uses carries returns, and XML stores a new line as line feed. So whenever XML, actually HTML did not consider spaces, but XML consider spaces. Okay, and so what we syntax rules followed is a document that should be, we are calling a while writing the XML document. What we discussed the syntax rules. If we follow while writing the XML elements as well as entities or attributes, that document we are calling as a well-formed document. Well-formed document. Okay. So what we discussed syntax rules in order to write the element like XML document. That document is calling as well-formed document. Okay. And then, how can we write XML elements? So XML document contains XML elements. So in order to write XML element, already we discussed. This is the syntax. See, this is the start of the element and end of the element. This is the textual information of the element. So an XML element is everything from including element start tag to including the elements and the tag. Okay, this is the XML element. Next, XML element can have text, attributes, or other elements, or mix of the above. So XML element may have like attributes or other sub elements or textual information, or mix of these three information. So in what way we can write XML element? Just to see. So empty XML elements, an element with no content is said to be empty. Empty. Okay, so look like this. This is the no content in this. Just opening the tag. Okay, opening tag and ending tag. And this can be, we will represent as like this also. This is also paid tag, but empty tag. Right? Next, XML elements naming rules. So in order to write the elements, what are the naming rules? In what way we while writing the declaring the variables for the programming language, what are the rules we are declaring the variables? Like that, in order to write the elements or tags. So what are the naming rules we should follow while writing the elements in XML? So element names are case sensitive. Already I told you XML elements are case sensitive. Element names must start with a letter or underscore. Element names cannot with the letters are for XML. Okay, any combination of XML, lower cases, upper cases, it should not consist of XML. Okay, right? And element names can contain letters, digits, hyphens, underscores, and periods. Element names cannot contain spaces. So if you declare the element that cannot contain spaces, for example, first name is there. As usually we are reading the first space name. So in that cases that element will not be valid. So we should write like this. Element should not consist of spaces. And any name can be used, no words are reserved. So we can use any name except XML. Okay. Best naming practices create descriptive names like so. We should while writing the XML element. So the best way we are writing is list of names of so that should be descriptive manner. Suppose if you want the person details, just write the element name is person, first name, last name, like that. Okay. In that way, we will define or we can write elements by using these rules. Okay. Next, XML attributes. XML attributes can have XML elements can have attributes just like HTML. So attributes are designed to maintain data related to specific element. So attribute purposes, it is maintaining data for the element. Okay, attribute value must always be quoted. So the quoted means it will be a double quote or a single quote. You can write the value of the attribute either double quote or single quote. In this scenario, person is the element, gender is the attribute for the person element, and the value of gender is female. That should write in the double quote. Okay, this is also valid, and this is also valid, right? So single quote have both. So attributes can write within attribute values we can write within double quotes. Okay. And if the attribute value itself contains double quotes, so some attributes may have some itself may contain double quotes. In that scenario, instead of writing quotes, we can go for entity references. Entity references. For example, here youngster name George, the name value is this much. Okay, but it is not valid. Instead of writing this one, just with instead of double quote, you should write ampersand quote semicolon as usual text, again ampersand quote semicolon remaining text. Okay, so if we have quotes in the XML value, XML attribute value, okay, instead of writing the quotes, you should write corresponding entity references. That should you can write like this. Okay, so the example here, so XML elements, how can we declare XML elements as well as attributes? So what we discussed, then we can give an example. So here person is the element which is having gender as attribute in first case. Okay, so person having elements, sub elements, first name, last name, and gender is the attribute in first case. For the same example, we have written both are same in this cases. So we have written gender as a sub element of person. Okay, so both are valid XML documents. Okay, so if you want to describe specifically as the attribute for the element, you should go for attribute. If you want to use that attribute will be as sub element, you can go for like this. So here both the examples provide same information. There are no rules about when to use attributes or when to use elements in the XML. There is no rules. Depends on the requirements. We can write corresponding. Right. So this is the following three XML document contain exactly the same information, but just here a date attribute is the use of the first. So different scenarios. So there are three XML documents are there. 1, 2, 3 documents. So only difference is the date. So in first example, date is used as attribute for the. And the syntax, the value of date is we have written in double quotes. Okay, and here in second example, the date is used as sub element of note element. Okay, here we used attribute. Here we used child element of root node, right? And in third, date is having three sub elements, which is having year, month, day. It is having year, month, day. So these three are display same information. Only the way of writing the XML structure is different. XML structure is different. Okay. So that based on our requirement, users are able to write. Depends on the requirement. It can be. Okay. This is about XML elements as well as attributes. Okay. Sometimes we should avoid attributes. But the okay, it's valid, but we should avoid this much lengthy of attributes. It's not suggestible to write as for the single element. So in these cases, it is suggestible to write sub elements for the single element. Okay. So while writing the attributes, we should consider these attributes cannot contain multiple values, but elements can. And attributes cannot contain tree structures. Attributes are not easily expandable, but element is possible. Okay, these are the differences between element and attributes and usage of elements and attributes. Okay, and some of the attributes we will use as references. Okay, ID references in order to assign the elements. So these are IDs can be used to identify XML element in much. The way the ID attribute. So we are using IDs in HTML also. The way we are using IDs in HTML, like that IDs are used as attributes in XML also. For example, there is a node. So the same example, ID. So this is identifying the corresponding node. So this is 501 value as ID is attribute. The value is 501. Here we are giving the identity. Okay, ID 502 for this XML. So for both the node. Okay, this is the one 501. This is 502 between message. The root element is message. Okay. Next, how can we display the XML documents? So XML files we can XML elements we can write in any editor. We can save it as .filename.xml, and we can open or display by using any browser. So almost all browsers can be supported XML document. Okay, so don't expect what actually HTML displays the content in the web browser like that. Don't expect the XML is also displayed like that. So in what way we have written that will be displayed? So that display structure format. So in what we have written like that, it will be displayed. So viewing XML document. So for the previous example is there now. So previous example. So this will be displayed as some of the part node. Okay, like this. Right. So in order to display the XML document, it will be displayed by using browsers. Right. And so look at the XML file above, the node.xml file. Most browsers will display an XML document with color coded element. Okay, actually if you open, we will observe that the elements that will be color coded. So the elements element structure, it will be having plus. If you minus, total elements can be clicked on that expanded element. So if you open, that will be easy, we can understand. Anyway, we will have example. Okay, so in view of raw XML course, to try to select view page source. So page source from the browser. So we can view source code, we can get it. So finally, XML documents are displayed by using browsers or any editors also. It is possible. Okay, don't expect like HTML documents. Okay, so XML having structure, and XML while writing XML element, that should be well formed. Well formed. You should follow the rules of writing the elements as well as while writing the attributes. So the syntax rules you should follow while writing these elements as well as attributes in XML. Okay, and also, so what we have written in XML elements, attributes, entity references now, those things we need to specify. I already told you while declaring them, just we are using user-defined elements. So for that definitions we should provide. That definitions we are provided by using DTD, XML DTD. So a DTD is what is that? DTD stands for document type definition. So a DTD defines the structure and legal elements and the attributes of a XML document. The structure. So earlier we have written the XML elements are node, to, from, okay, heading, okay, like that. So the structure we have written the step by step root notices, the elements of this. So how can we know? So we have written based on the requirement. We need to provide the definitions these elements in the extra document that is DTD. Okay, DTD provides structure and legal elements and attributes of a XML document. So an XML element document with the correct syntax is called well formed. So any document which is having syntactically valid, that document is called as well formed. And also an XML document valid against the DTD, both well formed and valid. So whenever when the XML document is valid, it should consist of property. Okay, that validation can be done by the document type, XML document type definition. Right? So that if you want to write XML document, XML files, that should be well formed as well as valid. So validation can be done by the XML DTD. Okay, and well formed, you should write while writing the like elements or attributes, you should follow the syntax rules. that we already discussed. Okay. So how can we provide what is the document type definition? See, while writing DTD, it declares, so there are two ways we can write DTDs. DTD declaration within the XML document, or else we can create external DTD and we can provide link to the, after creating that, we can provide link to the within the XML document. There are two ways, internal DTD declaration and external DTD declaration. In what way we had is cascading style CSS. So inline, internal and external. Inline for the element, internal for the document, external for many documents. Okay, like that, DTD also we can declare inside XML document. It must be wrapped inside the what actually doc type, less than or rectangular bracket, exclamatory mark, doc type, capital letters. Okay, you should write. This is the within that we should write DTD. So what is syntax to write? Left triangular bracket, exclamation, doc type, DOCT, YPE, capital letters. Okay, and closing. So after that we need to write. And then so we should write the prologue. Okay, XML version 1.0. Okay, and doc type. You should define first. You should write the root element. Here the root element is not. Okay, what is the root element? Node, and node having 4 sub-elements, 2 from heading body. So we have written right earlier XML document which is having 4 sub-elements. Okay, in order to declare sub-elements for the node, we should use element, left angular bracket, exclamatory mark, element, capitals, element. So in order to declare sub-elements for the element, we should use element. Not only sub-elements, we characterization of the element, right? So next, these 4 sub-elements, what are the input data format? We are using same exclamatory mark element TO2 as PC data. PC data means parsable character data. So while we have written some textable data, right, between the suppose 2 opening tag, closing tag, between that tag we have written message textual information, and that will be parsed. That is, will be parsed character data. Okay, parsing the data. Okay, so that finally here what we are having XML document here. This is XML document. For that we have declared a DTD. In what way we have declared? By using doc type, and in order to declare elements, we should use element. Okay, XML mark element. This is the syntax everybody should follow. Right? So that here there are 4 sub-elements are there for the node. So that's what we have declared for the node. There are 4 sub-elements. As well as 4 sub-elements takes input PC data, textual information. That's what we have written. So here CTOBE, that is PC data, and Johnny, remainder, and don't forget me this picture. Okay. So for this XML document, this is DTD. XML DTD. So we have written in the XML DTD in where? Internal, within the same document, so that this XML elements, this is XML document, it is valid. Okay, why? Because it consists of the structure, the DTD, right? And also it is well formed. See, so opening tag, closing tag properly, listed properly, right? All are prepared tag. Okay, they all are case sensitive. Tags are case sensitive, wrapped, nested properly. So these are the rules we are following. Naming conventions of while declaring the elements we are following, so that this XML document is well formed. Okay, right? So it is also valid document because it consists of XML. So any XML document should be well formed and valid. So well formed can be done by following the syntax rules of elements and some symmetry regulations. And validity we can get by using corresponding DTD, XML DTD. Right? So what we discussed is edit the above interpreted like this. Doc type node defines the root element of the document is not, An element node defines that the node element must contain the elements to from heading body, and element 2 keyword defines the two element to be type of PC data, and from defines to be type is PC data, and heading type to be PC data, and body should be considered PC data. Okay. Right. So how can we declare entity declarations in DTD? So we are using entity relations, right? Entity relations, right? So how can we declare entity relations? So a doc type declaration can also be used to define special characters and character strings used in the document. So we can use and define entity relations also possible. Okay. So here this example tells us user defined entity relations. So here doc type, so user defined entity relations. So we are already 5 entity relations we are having XML provides. So user defined what way we are providing, simply keep in mind. So we should have a root node, and between that we should provide this also internal DTD only. So entity relations can be defined by using entity key. So less than external entity, all capital letters, space here NBSP. Entity reference is NBSP, the value for it. This is the value for it. Okay, and writer writer entity reference. This is the value. Copyright entity reference. This is the value. So instead of writing that, so these entity relations we are used ampersand. And what we should write? Ampersand value. So writer semicolon. Ampersand. So this is the declaration of entity references, entities, and this is the usage of entities. How can we use ampersand name and semicolon? Ampersand name semicolon. So these are the user defined entities. In that way, we can specify entities in DTD. So if we specify entities in DTD, we can use in XML document. So there are 3 we are specified entities in the node, so that we are used in the node tag itself as these 3 entities, right? So this is the output for that. So we have written entity, right? Ampersand writer semicolon. So we are in what value? Writer colon Donald Duck colon copyright colon. So what the values we have declared here? So values, those values will be displayed while opening the corresponding XML document. This is the output for that. Okay. Yeah. So previous examples we have declared DTDs internal. So in this example, how can we declare DTD external, right? So when declared, how can we use that DTD in the XML document, right? So document must be contain reference to the DTD file. So here in the example, so doc type node system. This is predefined. You should write, and after that we should write what DTD file node.dtd. So DTD file name is node.dtd. That will be importing to our. So in order to validate this XML document. Okay. Simply, what is the structure we have written now? DTD file that will be saved as node.dtd. This is node.dtd. So this will be saved as node.dtd. Then this node.dtd we are referencing this document by using doc type for the node, okay, system and node.dtd. Right? In that way we can use. Why? Because we are using system internally. And then now, so up to now we have known about how XML documents are valid as well as well-formed, right? So XML documents which are consisting of elements, attributes, entities. How can we write those elements, attribute, entities, and then how can we define entity relations, user defined entity relations In order to validate the XML document, how can we declare DTD, XML DTD, XML DTD, how internally as well as externally. So in this, actually, in order to write elements and attributes, okay. So what types of elements or types of attributes you can? So that concept is calling as a DTD XML building blocks. So how can we construct, okay, XML document? Right. So the main building blocks, both XML and HTML are elements. The building blocks of XML documents are only from the DTD point of view. All XML documents are made up of by following building blocks. So what are the building blocks? Elements, attributes, entities, PC data, CD data. PC data stands for parsed character data. CD data means character data. Okay. So these things, what are specifications in order to use? Sometimes you may use elements many times. Okay, sometimes you may use attributes like that. So it depends on what are specifications that we will discuss. Okay, so first we will discuss about attributes. So attributes provide extra information about the tag. So for example, img tag, src. So this is image tag, img tag. Src is the attribute for the resource. Okay, and as entities, some special characters already have a special meaning in XML, like less than, that defines start of the XML tag. Instead of using less than, you use ampersand, okay, LT semicolon. That's okay, and most of you know HTML entity and ampersand NDSB. So no break space. It used to HTML insert the extra space in the document. Okay, so that type of entities also we can use. And PC data means passive character data. Think of for character data as text found between the start tag and end tag of the XML tag. What's actual data? Start tag between the end tag, what data that will be textual information that will be passed. So that is PC data. Okay, and C data means character data. C data is not is text which will not be passed by the parser. Okay, passed by the, not passed by the parser. Tags inside the text will not be treated as markup entities, will not be expanded. This is about PC data as well as C data, CD data, right? And then DTD elements. How can we declare? So in many ways actually we can declare element declarations. Okay, declaring elements in a DTD, XML elements are declared with the following syntax. So in order to declare in the DTD as element, we should write element is the object. So less than XML element name and category. Okay, category. Right? And element name and element content. What are the element content? PC data, sub element that will be specified. So that category will specify. Here the elements are declared with the category keyword empty. So the category keyword is empty. So that then there is no textual information between the element. Okay. Suppose this is example BR. Okay. That is DTD is element BR empty. So category is empty. If we specify this, there is no textual information between the BR tag. So we will show it as BR. Next, building XML with pass character data. So element with PC data. So we should specify element with the PC data. Example here, element from is element name, that will be the PC data. So from is having the information, textual information. So this is document DTD, right? So for this XML is from, okay, value textual information, closing of from, opening tag from, closing tag from, between them there will be a PC data pass, right? That should be. And then elements with any content. So any content that may be contain combination of possibility, that is PC data or C data. Okay, so any. And then elements with children. Okay, so a element having maybe sub elements, okay, maybe single or many elements. So in this example, node for node element, there are 4 sub elements we have specified. In that way, sub elements are specified. Next. So here for the declaration of example for note, there are 4 elements. Each element is specified as character data, PC data, parsable character data, right? And declaring. So and also one thing, specification. So while declaring the element, we need to specify the how many number of times it will be declared. That will be specified. The declaring only one occurrence of the element, we should write the element name and child. So for the node, message is the child name. Message is the child name. That should be only one occurrence. Only one occurrence. In that way, you should write a node message. If you have 4 sub-elements are there, those 4 sub-elements should be having one occurrence. If we specify, that is the minimum, right? And if we have a plus, minimum one occurrence. Minimum one occurrence. Okay, child name minimum one occurrence. Suppose this is not message. Message should be one occurrence. Minimum one occurrence. So at least we can write more than one also. Right? This is plus means minimum one occurrence. And star means 0 or more occurrence. May not possible. So other not able to enter, even sometimes other not able to enter child elements also. That scenario we should go for star. Even sometimes other have to enter at least one element. That scenario we go for plus. So what are the elements we have written? That should be used as sub-elements. In that scenario, we should use this one. Okay. So occurrence of the element we can specify by using mandatory. Okay. Minimum one occurrence, 0 or more occurrence. And by using question mark, 0 or more, 0 or 1 occurrences. Okay, if you have a question mark, it should be 0 or 1 occurrences. Right? So that is the difference. Star means it is 0 or more occurrences. Question mark means 0 or 1 occurrence. Okay, and declaring the either or that. So if in this scenario, not having a to from header, okay, mandatory sub-elements, message or body. So you can have message or body, anyone you can use. So in that cases also we can use. Okay, either or else mixed content. So element may have PC data or else element. So by using slashes we can specify. So mixed content. So this is star 0 or more occurrence. We are specifying. So that based on that requirement, we are specifying in the XML DTD the occurrence of elements. The occurrence of elements. And also the occurrences of element as well as what type of data it will be used. So in that way we are defining the XML elements in DTD, right? And DTD attributes. DTD attributes. In DTD, attributes are declared in ATT-LIST. ATT-LIST declaration. Okay. So attribute declare has the following syntax. The syntax is less than question mark ATT list element name, attribute type, and attribute value. So you should consider element name, you should consider attribute name, and what type of attribute this is, and attribute value. For example, this is while declaring attribute list for the payment type attribute. So payment is the element name, type is the attribute. Okay, CD data attribute type. Okay, and check is the value. So this is the DTD for this. And example of XML is payment type equal to check. Okay, payment type equal to check. If you specify check, we should write check. So in what way attributes are used? So these are the attribute types of corresponding. The following attribute type you can use. Okay, C data, that value is character data. Enumerable even en1/en2. The value must be one from the enumerable list. ID, the value is unique ID. ID reference, the value is the ID of another element. ID references, the value is list of other IDs. Okay, and then token, the value is valid XML name. Enum tokens, the value is the list of valid XML names. Entity, the value is entity. Entities, the value is list of entities. Notation, the value is name of the notation. XML colon, the value is predefined XML value. In that way, we can use any attribute type. Any attribute type for the attribute. We can specify by using the entity list. Okay, and sometimes the attribute value we should specify. Okay, that may be mandatory, that may be optional. So for that, the value of the corresponding, there are 4 possibilities are there. Value is value, the default value of the attribute. So if you specify value equal to value, some value, suppose check we have to, that will be default. And if you use hash required, the attribute is required. So we should specify, we should write the value. And if it is implied, the attribute value is optional. If it is fixed value, the attribute value is fixed. So by default, actually it is fixed value. Okay. So by taking an example for each one, we can understand. So suppose a default attribute value here, by default attribute value is 0, we are specifying. See, element is square, it is empty, and for square, width is the attribute. Attribute type is CData. Attribute value is 0. By default, it is 0. Here, by the square, the width we are specifying 100. If you are not specifying 100, the value is actually 0. Okay, that is the meaning. So by default, you should specify that will be 0. Right? And width take character data. And one more hash required. So the syntax is in order to use hash required. Data list, element name, attribute type, hash. So this is the example. Attribute list, person is the element name, number is the attribute. For number is the data is C data, and that should be required. So in order to use, if you write XML element is person, you should write number value. Okay, so that the value will be. So if it is required, you should use number attribute and write the value. Okay, so this is the valid usage of person. Okay, XML element. This is not valid. So here in this scenario, we did not use the number. Okay. So if you have required as required, that should be we should specify. And one more is implied. So implied means that is optional. So here contact is the element, fax is the attribute, and value is CD data, and type is hash. This is optional. So that these both cases are valid XML tags. So contact, fax equals something written, right? Okay. Even we did not write also. So implied, if you use the keyword, if you use the implied keyword as attribute value, that is optional. Okay. And then fixed. So if you use fixed as attribute value, that should be that value, whatever we specify, that should be the value. So here in this scenario, so element name is sender. Okay, attribute name is company, that accepts data, that will be fixed. Okay, fixed, that value is Microsoft. So that if you use sender as element, and you should write company equal to Microsoft, that's all. If you write this is invalid. This is okay, the fixed value. So sometimes some companies are writing their own XML documents. In that scenario, other write the fixed value. So nobody cannot change it. So that is the meaning of fixed attribute value. Next, the attributes may be enumerated attributes. So more than, suppose in this example, this is the syntax, element name, attribute name. So enumerated. Okay, en1, en2, and so on. Any default attribute. Okay. Suppose payment is the element, type is the attribute. Thus this check or cash. The default value is cash. So that you should use both are valid XML elements. Both are valid XML elements. Next, entities. So we can user define entities. Some special characters entities can be declared internal or external. So anyway, user defined entities are declared. See here the internal entity declaration by using entity keyword, entity name, entity value. So already we discussed. The only thing is we are DTD on what way we are discussing building blocks of DTD, right? How can we write DTD for the XML elements, XML attributes, and entities. That's what extra we are discussing. Already we discussed about this. So entity writer is the reference, the value is this. Copyright is the reference, the value is this. Okay. So example other. So same thing we are used like this. Instead of writing this double quotes, okay, you should write like this. Okay. So any entity should consist of keep in mind while using the entity, you should have ampersand, entity name, and semicolon. Okay, and external entity. See, external entity, just you are specifying entity name, system, URL. You should use the URL external. Okay, so here external entity for the writer, right? I'm using the URL this one, so that this will be displayed in the XML. So writer, if you call this, if you write this, it will be displayed. So finally, this is the DTD file structure. So here doc type. So this is the DTD for the element, attributes as well as entities. Okay. So newspaper is the root element. Root element for the article plus we are using one or more. So newspaper having the articles, one or more articles. Each article consists of headline, byline, lead, body, notes. The type of these attributes elements, we are specifying the PC data. These, okay, and these articles other attributes you are specifying PC data required. Okay, for other, for the okay. So this is article is the attribute is other that is required. Okay, that is CD data, and editor that is employee, optional. Okay, this is also optional. Date, edition, optional. Okay, required means that is compulsory. If you use article as element, so article actually comes under sub element of newspaper. Okay, newspaper is root. If you use the article, you should write other, that is required. And also entity relations we are using for the newspaper is entity name. Okay, this is the value logic types, and publisher value logic types. Copyright this one. So that we are specifying DTD for element. Okay, elements are we are specifying plus if you use plus one or more. So in that newspaper, article is a sub element. Okay, article, many article element, more than that should be newspaper should consist of one article minimum or more than one. Many articles should consist of. Each article consists of these are the elements. If you have a article, that article consists of sub elements of headline, byline, lead, body, notes. Okay, those elements are actually taken PC data as PC data, textual information. Okay, and also we are specifying for the article attributes, attribute values in such a way that okay, that should be required. Other, the attribute other should be required. We are specifying should be required. Editor optional by specifying hash implied, that is optional. Date optional, and edition optional. We are specifying. And entities, newspaper, publisher, copyrights. Entities we have defined. Okay, so this is the DTD. So in this DTD, we are having the root tag. Root element is newspaper. In that article is sub element for the root newspaper, and in the article there are 5 sub elements. Okay, and also article having 4 attributes Among 4 attributes, one is compulsory, required, and there are optional. We are specifying. Right? And also there are 3 entities are there: newspaper, publisher, entity reference system. So entity XML DTDs plays very important role in order to write XML documents. So DTDs are whenever XML document having DTD only, that XML document is valid. Finally, while writing XML document, that should be well formed as well as valid. Well formed means properly follow the syntax rules of XML. And valid means you should have a DTD for the corresponding XML document. This is about XML syntax rules as well as XML DTD. Okay, this ends about XML DTD. Thank you.